Hi everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Thanks for finding us if you're new to the podcast. If you've been listening, thanks for coming back. Do you guys like goat meat? That's the question that Hans is.
I want to talk about this. I think it's funny. It has nothing to do with dogs.
Yeah.
Just to relax a little bit.
It's a good story.
From the dog. And Gabor here reminded me of this story. So I said, maybe I should maybe talk about it.
It's pretty funny. Yeah.
It was funny, It just shows you how when I was growing up, how
Back in the Czech,
how everything was different, compared to now. I mean, gosh, my mom would tell me, go play, go out, and come back when the street lights are coming on, right?
Yeah.
I was 4 or 5 years old. I was just going out, right?
He would never do that to a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
It's child abuse.
Oh, yeah, God, they put you in prison now, right? So, and you know what, like when it was raining, for example, right? The water would be running between the curb and the street, with that little gutter.
Yeah, the gutter.
And you know what, man? It was like the grossest thing, right?
Because all the
drunks puke and
everything.
pee and oil from cars and stuff. Just running there. And we built little dams there and made little boats out of a pine bark and stuff like that. Playing in it, just perfect vaccination,
You're still here.
Perfect vaccination, And my mom, I remember she taught me, and that's a lot of kind of left effect on me, be practical as far as dog training.
Default.
Yeah, default. Yeah.
Actually, it is about.
My mom was, she was an angel. Everybody loved my mom, and she I remember how she taught me things, So she said, go play on the street, right? And so I would run on the street, right? And during communism, there was like one car per hour maybe going.
There wasn't a rush hour.
Right, there was no rush hour, but yet still people got hit by a car, right?
Yeah.
And I ran across the street and I didn't look left or right. And my mom would call me, she saw me from the window.
Yeah.
We were living on the first level of the apartment building, and she would call me in, and she says, you didn't look left and right. You gotta look left first, and right, and then and you just and then because the car drives on the right hand side, so you look first left, and then when you are in the middle, you look right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you can cross. And she talked to me about that and looked me in the eyes and holding me. And to me, it was just blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I want to go play.
Yeah.
Right? And so she says, okay, now go out. And I would run and completely forgot. Just like when I train dogs, I tell people, like when we do the
Tunnel vision.
left, right,
I did it. Robin didn't do it.
I
But
told you, same as my mom. Of course, unfortunately, I cannot take wooden spoon and beat your ass with it like my mom did, right? When she called me back,
Hans would do it if there was one of the.
So my mom called me back, right? And said, you didn't look, and she got wooden spoon and beat my ass with it, right? And then I start looking, I'm still looking, And that's a guy about dog training, you gotta do punishment sometimes, positive punishment, meaning adding punishment, in order for the dog to listen. I'm not saying you should necessarily beat it, but you gotta make a physical point, and so or my mom, she would teach me, for example, about hot water, right? So she would take me to the bathroom, and there's a tub, and she would say, you see, this blue faucet is cold, and the red faucet is hot, right? I'm 4 or 5 years old, right?
Yeah.
And so when you turn the faucet, hot or cold water will come out, depending what faucet you do.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you go somewhere, as a plumber make mistake or somebody didn't, and they switch the pipes,
Yeah.
and you may get a hot water out of cold faucet, which
Yeah.
is it's cold, right?
Yeah.
And you turn it and go in and you burn yourself, you scald yourself.
Yeah.
So what you do, she would say, you would kind of act like a kitty, kind of slap, make a little
Yeah,
scream
don't
and
hold you.
kind of hit it, and you will feel if it's hot or cold.
Yeah.
Just test the faucet. Don't trust what's there. My mom taught me these things, right?
The
And
default.
I remember I was living at this kennel, and there was this guy, and it was pretty Spartan. I was living in my trailer, and and we had an outside shower and bath, and I was living there alone. I was leasing kind of place, and then the owner with her boyfriend moved into in there. It was a big property, 10 acres, and so when I lived there alone, there was this little tiny boiler, water heater, right? So you didn't get very many gallons of water out of little, tiny office heater type thing, small one.
Yeah.
So what I did, I opened this thing and I crank up the heat so that it was almost boiling when it was coming out, right? And I always started with, my mom also told me always start with cold, right? And then slowly start getting hot.
Yeah.
So that's what I did,
Yeah.
right? And I lived there like that for a year, and then this woman who I rented the place for came there with her boyfriend, and he needed to take a shower, and I took the shower head off, so it was just a stream because I like it that way. And I'm in my trailer, and I hear this screaming, right?
Yeah.
So I run out. I said, "What's going on?" I said, "Who turned this hot water so hot? Are you stupid?" And I know what he did. He turned the hot water on and put it on himself, because in America you can't get a hot water out of the faucet. Everything's kind of lukewarm because, people are idiots, and they will sue you
Yeah.
if you get scolded, right?
Yeah.
So, and I looked at him, and he had like a red streak from his cheek all the way to his crotch, across his chest, all over down. And he says, "You stupid!" I said, "No, I'm not. I never got burned." Right?
Yeah.
Oh, he didn't like me after that. But you know what? That's how I was raised. A tough thing. Did I tell the story about the dog? My father sent me to get my sister.
Yes.
I said I did.
Yeah.
Okay, so that
But the goats is the funny thing.
we go to that. So I don't worry, man.
But they're like listening. Why did you say goats when you guys are talking
Yeah,
about
well, I gotta keep the suspense going, right?
drum roll?
And so I, and then when I was like 12 or 14, I joined this Herpetological society, right? So there was this club, and herpetology is snakes and lizards and tortoises, right?
Yeah.
Reptiles.
Reptiles, yeah.
Americans go, "Oh, I'm gonna herp," meaning I'm gonna go catch snakes. The people who are interested in this type of stuff. And yeah, I was 14. I was part of the. I was dragging snakes and lizards and geckos and all that home.
Your mom was.
My mom was just like, oh. But at first she was just completely. But then she left me alone with that. Okay, and she says nothing poisonous, no poisonous snakes. So okay, I'll allow you to have all. Anyway, so no poisonous snakes. But I remember. Just so that people realize how differently I was raised, or even here in America was probably the same at those years, right? I mean, this is 1965, 68. I came from the club of the Herpetological Society. It was all young kids, and we had this leader. His name was Maximilian Gallia. Maximilian Gallia, a great guy. And we were gonna go to Bulgaria, right? to catch snakes, right? And imagine I came home, bug-eye, oh, mom, I need permission. We are gonna go to Bulgaria catching up snakes. I'm 14 years old. We go with one man, catching up snakes 2 countries away from, you have Czechoslovakia, then you have Hungary, and then it's Bulgaria, right?
Yeah.
It was a 16 hours train, and
It's a big
I'm
thing.
14 years old, and asking my mom to let me. It's like almost like a third world country, at least the regions we were. I've seen people walking barefoot on a train,
It's no joke, yeah.
Yeah, and all that. And my mom looked at me and says, okay. Imagine 14-year-old kid, Bulgaria, with one guy catching snakes. That's where I came from, right?
Yeah.
And yeah. So anyway, I remember. So I went several times to Bulgaria. I love Bulgaria and Romania.
Romania,
Yeah. I've been there many times, and good people. I like it there. It's been a long time since. And anyway, then when I grew up a little bit more, I was like 16, 17 years old. I was in high school. And me and my friends, we used to go hike to Slovakia a lot, Slovenské Rudohoří, High Tatra Mountains.
beautiful place.
And it was beautiful, right? And I was there all the time, man. I even had a girlfriend there, man. And I remember once we decided to go on the easternmost part of Slovakia. And the mountain range over there is called Vehorlat.
Okay.
Right, Vehorlat. And so we decided to go hike there. And it was like you entering 19th century, right? Like 1800s, right? Mm-hmm. Because, like for example, we would walk, right, there through the village, right? And people would ask us, like, we start their discussion with the people.
They knew you were not.
Yeah, and they look at us like, what the hell, who are these people? Mm-hmm. They just start talking and all that. And we says, well, so where are you going, guys, right? Because over there in that village,
people really didn't walk through. It was not like
they walk with purpose. I'm gonna go milk cows.
Yeah.
Or I'm gonna go
chop wood
or something, right? And where are you going, right? And we says, well, we just walking, we're hiking. And they didn't understand.
Yeah.
They had no idea. We were like first tourists they ever saw, right? And they had houses, man. There was just one, and you can still see it if you go on the internet. They still have them, but now it's a skansen. It's like a museum, right? Mm-hmm. But they lived there. They have these houses. They had just one room. And I'm not trying to degrade them, They were happier than I'm now, probably, or we are now with these scratchy phones, right? And they would live in the big house, log house, and there was open fire pit. They cooked on. There was no chimney. The smoke was just rising through the thatch roof, so there was all fires, you can imagine.
Yeah.
And they would be hanging meat there to get smoked with that smoke they cooked on.
Yeah.
From the fire they cooked on.
Yeah.
And they would have, and they would live with their animals in the house. One room, all family in one room, right? And so we were hiking in this region. It was tremendous. It reminded me the other day. It was kind of similar weather, like as it was over there, which was conducive to when it's really quiet to hear people talking from long distance. Uh-huh. So like we would walk on a side of the mountain, and suddenly we hear somebody talking, and we're looking like, who is talking?
But they were
They were about 1.5 miles over the valley, on the other side of the valley, 2 sheep herders. One was kind of on our side, and the other one was on the other side. And they just have a conversation about 1 mile apart from each other. And just the other day, I've heard this, it was somewhat quiet. It was weekend, not much traffic and all that. And I could hear, people like that. So I remember that. How, that's very rare phenomenon,
Yeah.
And I remember in our summer home, you could see down over the valley, and there was on the other side was a little village called Oleshko, and I didn't know those people over there. It was also about 2 kilometers as the crow flies.
Yeah.
Across that valley,
Yeah.
or maybe more, And I didn't know those people, but I knew almost anything about them because in the evening you could sit in front of your house and you could hear them talking about, hey, Mary, are you gonna, what kind of groceries we gotta get tomorrow? You can hear them talking.
Yeah.
People don't, it's totally.
No car noises.
Yeah, and we were walking and we would, over the mountains there in Veholat, and there was a lot of war going on during World War II. And big battles, going on there, and there were also guerrillas fighting Germans and all that. Man, we were finding ammunition. You gotta watch where you're walking.
Still.
Yeah, I've seen mortar rounds just laying there. Or somebody, I remember once somebody picked up the mortar round and baling wire tied to the tree. I don't know what that meant, but it was there.
Yeah, it was only 20-some years, 25 years, so it's not super mid-60s. So
yeah, about 30 years. Yeah, war ended 45, and this is what I'm saying about 70.
Okay.
I was a teenager.
Okay.
I was
Okay,
about
70.
16.
Okay, so
I was
30
about
years.
16 years old when I did this.
30 years. But
And we would be there again. We would be there for weeks, 2-3 weeks, and we would befriend these gypsies. Everybody said, "Oh, gypsies, bad people." Oh, we've befriended gypsies, and they took us in. There was racism there, man. You could have a bar, and one was for gypsies, and one was for white people.
Yeah.
Right, and we befriended the gypsies, and they were, and they said, "Oh, gypsies, they steal." Hey, we would go day hike. Hey, can I leave my backpack here so I don't have to carry home my backpack? I just take a single bag, a small bag with me, and left it there. They wouldn't touch nothing, man, because you give them the trust.
Yeah, that was very.
But anyway, so right there where we heard the talking, right, across the valley of those 2 sheep herders. There was a winding road down on the bottom, and we just walked there, and we bushwhacked, we did a lot of walking off trails.
Yeah.
And we came down there on that road, and I forgot the name of that village, which kind of bothers me. But I remember everything clearly, and we were tired, man. We were dead tired. We started, you don't sleep much because, when you sleep outside, you kind of sleep maybe 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
When you're young and hiking, you need more. So we were tired, we hiked down the mountain, and then we started walking up the street through this village. And we figured out, hey, what are we going to do? We're going to go in a bar and get drunk, and then we'll go somewhere behind the town and crash there somewhere under a tree in the sleeping bags, right? And as we walk up that through that village, we see this guy, and we were thirsty. We ran out of water, and the guy, that's a guy who didn't know what tourists are, and he goes, "Oh, hey guys, where are you going?" And I said, "Tourists." And as I told you already, he didn't know what the heck it is, so we tried to explain it to him, and I don't think it penetrated.
What it is?
I don't think he understood. I mean, I swear, we were the first tourists or hikers
that he's seen,
who he ever seen, right?
Yeah.
And so he says, so we were thirsty, so we said, guys, we asked him, hey, can you give us a little bit of water? We figured in our canteens, And he says, yeah, I'll get you some water. And he walked in the house and he came and he brought this glass, 8-ounce glass. with water in it, right? And I said, for 3 of us. So he's giving us 8-ounce glass of water. What the heck, right? And it was all the way level, all the way to the brim, full, right?
Yeah.
And he gave it first to me, right? And so I picked it up and I took a sip, and it was vodka.
Yeah.
So I just,
Right.
and I gasped for the air, right? And I didn't say anything, right? And I gave it to my friend, right?
Yeah.
Because I want him to have the same experience, expecting water and get vodka,
Vodka.
right?
What are our friends for?
Yeah, that's right. And so he did. He gasped for the air. I whispered in his ear, said, "Shut up," right? And so he knew, So he
Yeah.
gave it to the third guy.
Yeah.
So and then when the third guy, a friend of ours, drank it, the
He's
old
laughing.
guy started laughing. He thought that was the funniest thing in his life, right?
Yeah.
And
There was no TV, so that was.
I'm
just saying, this was his entertainment.
They probably talk about it for years,
Yeah.
right? And they had these wells, which were there was like a post with like a fork, and
I
there was
see.
this lever, and they would look,
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
beam, and there was on a stick was a bucket.
Yeah.
And they lowered it,
Yeah.
man, Anyway, so we asked him, where we can have some beer, right?
Yeah.
Now we're underage, but it didn't matter.
There's no carding back then.
Yeah. In
That was the
Czechoslovakia.
least of
Yeah,
problems.
that's-
Carding.
Of course,
Yeah.
And so he pointed us, you go there, you will see, And so we went, and we got in, and, you just walk in this restaurant. We call it restaurant, but it's basically bar. But there's no bar. You sit by the tables, right?
Yeah.
And they bring you
serve-
beer there.
And they have food and beer.
Food and beer,
Yeah.
right? And we sit down, and this guy came there, but a little bit after us. But you walk in, and it's like in a bad western, right? A stranger walks in
You're
in
quiet.
a bar which is completely full. It was like Friday evening, and it's just quiet. You could hear the pin drop, and everybody looks at you. See these tough characters,
Yeah.
the loggers and the
Yeah,
farmers and
sheepherders.
ranchers and sheepherders,
Yeah.
They probably didn't wash their face for years, right? You
Yeah.
see this rough skin,
Yeah.
burned by sun, and all
Yeah.
that stubble or little beard
Yeah.
on and all that. And looking at us, and,
What do you?
and then we saw an empty table, so we sit down there, and everybody stopped talking again. It was funny. I never forget that. And so we struck conversation with these people, and they were very very friendly. We were like the
Attraction.
attraction. It's like a circus came to
Yes.
town, right? So everybody came and they listened. And what do you do? I go to high school, and I'm planning going to college, and
Yeah.
and all that. And they talk, and we talk, and all that. And we were hungry, right?
Yeah.
And they had some food, some sausages pickled in a vinegar,
Yeah.
and eggs pickled in it. That was it. Oh, fuck, we were hungry.
Yes. You eat it.
And we ate that, but man, it didn't cut the mustard. Plus, we drank, and everybody was buying us rum drinks and
yeah.
vodka
You guys were-
and beer, and we were completely hammered, right?
Yeah.
And next day was Sunday. It was Saturday, actually, yeah, because we worked a 6-day week back then.
Uh-huh.
And it was after the week was, so it wasn't Friday, it was Saturday.
Uh-huh.
And so we start talking, and he says, man, could we get some meat or something here, because there's groceries were all spam and all that was, because we're farmers, they had their own food, there was almost no,
Yeah.
they bake their own bread,
No, everything,
right,
yeah.
and everything, so there was really not really store. If you want to go to store, you buy galoshes there and stuff,
Yeah.
but not much food, right?
Yeah.
And if you do, it was all canned food and stuff. So
Yeah.
so we talked to the people, and I says, hey, can we get some kind of a food, bread or something? And the guy said, how would you like to have a goat? Goat meat.
Yeah.
And we says, yeah, sure. Sounds good. We can roast it outside in the woods
Yeah.
on a
Yeah.
spit.
Sounds good.
Sounded great. My mouth is watering now. And and this is so as we so he says, okay, well, I'm going to church, the guy said.
Yeah.
So why don't you come, in church in Czechoslovakia? It's not like here people go to church like at 11 o'clock or something, right?
It's in the morning.
Church is 7 in the morning, right, or something like that. And he says, so I'll be back home from church at about 10:30 or 11, so just come, I live in this house over there, and I'll get you some goat.
Meat. Yeah.
No, he didn't say goat meat.
Yeah.
He said goat.
Goat, yeah.
Right. And so we said, okay, goat mean like meat, right? And so we go there, we come, and he's still not there, and we could see him walking fast, and to his house, because people walk, there's no cars. And so we waited, and he come in, and he says, so how much you gonna give me for the meat? Like, I said, well, what do you want? He says, like, something like $20 or something.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money. I mean, it was not in dollars, it was in
Yeah.
crowns, but it would be about what it would be worth to you, $20 today.
Yeah.
And he says, well, come on, we'll get it. And so he invited us in his house, right? And I'm telling you, man, there was a dirt floor,
Yeah.
right? There is a bed, there is a stove,
Yeah.
there is a well inside of the house,
Yeah.
and goats and chicken and rabbits hopping all over, goats hopping on the bed and all that. It was just like a zoo, man.
Yeah.
Right? And there's like 5 or 6 goats.
Yeah.
And he says, well, there's a goat. And they were so cute. Have you ever seen baby
Baby
goats?
goats, yeah. Yeah.
And I said, we were stunned. We thought, they're going to give us like a butchered goat.
Yeah.
Or meat,
Yeah.
kit,
Yeah.
kit, And we says, well, we want a butchered one. We don't, well, just pick one up and go and, and we were just stunned. We just looked at each other. We didn't know what to do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't want a live goat or kid,
Yeah.
I mean, that's okay, and so he saw our confusion. He didn't understand. He thought maybe we have a hard time to pick one up.
Which one?
Which
Yeah,
one, right?
yeah, yeah.
So he says, well, pick up the black one. That one is cute. That one is cute. Now we're supposed to kill it, right?
You guys are looking at
Kill
each
the
other.
cute one, right?
Yeah.
And so I said, well, there's no way we will give you the $20, but there's no way, that we are gonna kill goat,
Yeah.
And he says, well, for another $5, I'll do it for you.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, now we start having personal relationship already with
That
that
was the
little
goat.
goat, right? They're bouncing around, all 4 legs in the air like this, whoop, 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 and on the bed, and chicken quapping around. Door open, they go in and out. Oh my God. And you know what? I talked about it last weekend about
book.
we lost the ability to kill.
Yeah.
Right? It was for these people, it was perfectly normal,
Yeah.
right? But we just were not able to. And so the guy says, okay, I'll kill it, but one of you guys gotta help me. So we pulled straws. Fortunately, I didn't win, right, or lose, whatever.
Yeah. Your
And
friend.
this guy, Milan Prokop was his name, or is his name, he's still alive.
Poor Sap.
And he ran.
He remembers that
and
story
then
today.
freaking, he has his rack there, and he ties the legs on of the goat. I watch it from distance, and he tied the rear legs and just pull up the goat up over the rack. He throws the rope over and pull it up and tie it down and came and cut its throat, right? And the goat stopped saying, nah, which in Czech means no, right? That sounds, it's like no in Czech, basically. And he cuts its throat and the blood, bleeded out. And
puts it in the pot.
Yeah, put it in pot. And then gut it and, all that jazz.
Yeah.
Skin it and all that. And he kept the kidneys. He says, I'm going to keep the kidneys. So I said, okay, keep the kidney. And kidneys and liver, he kept that, but he just gave us all the carcass of meat and all that. And I said, keep the head too. I cannot look at it. And and then we went. We packed it up. He packed it in newspaper because that's what you pack stuff in back then in those days. You don't have a special wrapping butcher paper. No, newspaper you read last week. For instance, by the fire pit there is
with lead.
There is right next to the wood pile is stacked pile of newspapers. So they wrapped it. And we went out in the woods. I found a nice place and there's these big leaves. I don't know. It's called lopuch in Czech. I don't know what it is. Just huge leaves, right?
Okay.
And we wrapped it in the meat. Cut it to smaller pieces, and wrapped it in those big leaves. And we built the fire, made a lot of ash, and then we stick that meat in it and. Covered it up, and then another piece we put on a spit and turn it around. We didn't know which way it's. We didn't know nothing about that, but it was experience.
Yeah. That was it.
So there you go. How to get a goat in Verhorlat, man. Yeah, I think it's a good story. But what these stories are forming your. When I teach I can't help myself. I got to speak a little bit about dogs. When I teach the dog training, I'm giving my students lessons. You guys gotta get at peace with hurting somebody, because if you do protection, you're gonna be hurting somebody, right? And one of the hardest thing, you can make with frontal lobe the decision that somebody needs to get hurt, but then you will be blocking it with your subconscious central brain, because we don't really want to hurt anybody. It's not human nature to hurt.
To hurt someone. That's the book.
There you go. That's the book. Yeah,
it's called On Killing. That's the
name. You don't want to hurt the people, of your or the individual of the same species. You don't want to really hurt them.
Yeah.
Right, but sometimes you have to, and we are losing the ability to kill. Right, we just don't want to do it. And then when you are in that situation, unless you have special training, you don't want to pull the trigger, or you don't want to send that dog. Or if you pull the trigger, you move the gun, so you miss on purpose, subconsciously, kind of.
Yeah.
Or when you send the dog, you're afraid to say the command correctly, and dog doesn't understand, because in training you said it a different way. Now you, instead of saying pozor, you say, pozor, and dog, he sniffs to the ground, doesn't know what, doesn't get it.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm kind of talking a little bit about this goat story or kid story, because even then, we lost the ability, to kill for our benefit, for food.
Yeah. Now that guy had it.
That guy had it. But he didn't understand. He didn't. Yeah. He absolutely had it. Yeah, but he's
not the majority.
He was living 100 years ago before we were living. We were city boys. I went,
Yep.
I was living in Prague, and he was living in mountains, talking across the valley with his buddy sheepherder.
Yeah. My grandmother, I was born in Hungary and raised there. I was about 12 years old when we moved to America, but I remember visiting her, and she killed the chicken. We wanted chicken soup. She whacked the chicken. I saw it, and the cats came, the feral cats of the neighborhood, knowing that she gutted the chicken. They came, she called them, they took the guts, the intestines, the chicken, that was it, and that was it.
Yeah,
we had fresh chicken soup.
Or when I was a little boy, in Moravia, my uncle was butchering pig, and I read that story from Garrison Keillor last weekend about the killing pig, and it was exactly like that, except I didn't throw the rocks at the pig, like in that story.
Yeah.
But what, I remember that poor pig, man. And as he said in that story, Garrison Keillor, it'll turn you into vegetarian, right?
Yeah.
I remember that pig. I loved, back then in Moravia, you have the living quarters and the barn where they farm animal like pigs and cow, and where if you just open the door from kitchen and there is a cow looking at you.
Yeah.
Right? And it was for the heat, so
It helped in the winter.
yeah, it helped keep the stone house,
Yeah.
kept it warm, right?
Warm.
And in winter, and so my father and my mother and my sister, we were invited for the butchering of the pig. It's like a big celebration. A lot of slivovitz is being drunk and all
huge.
that, and
I've been to it when
and
I
they
was.
scold it, after it's dead and all that.
Yeah.
But that poor pig, man, was just screaming for 48 hours before. I don't know how he knew,
Yeah.
that it's coming, but it was coming.
But I think it's part of the, when humans have a choice, they'd rather pass it, right? So you can go to the grocery store now and buy, pork.
Right,
But
right.
when
You don't want, they don't want to deal with it, and as I said, they killed the pig, and after that it was okay. They got it and scolded it and
Yeah.
and all that, and they boil and
Yep.
and like you
Use
said
the
in that
blood.
story from Garrison Keillor, everybody has its task. The women were boiling water, and some was making sausages,
The
blood
blood,
sausage,
yep.
and all that. Yeah, it was, it was a ritual.
But it was also food, like you had to eat too.
Right.
Like it was not a choice at some
Right,
point. So
right,
I think
right.
that's where the,
Right, but we still don't have a choice. We gotta eat, but we delegate the killing to other people now.
that's what I'm saying, yeah.
And then again, if you're doing protection, or if you're a soldier or cop or whatever,
You're put in a position.
you are being positioned to kill somebody, and we are losing that ability to do that, which people did for thousands of years as a normal routine. Just like people go and cut wheat in the field, they would kill the pig or a rabbit.
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess I end up on dogs anyway. We need to learn to. So what I'm saying is, when you train a dog for protection, it's not just some kind of a fun. You gotta, if you really want to do it truly, you gotta.
The mindset. Yeah.
You gotta practice.
If you enjoyed this content so far, please subscribe to our channel. Also, Hans has a podcast channel called Dog Training for Life. Check that out so you can listen to the audio version.
Visualize and think about the stress of it, and are you able to do it? I've seen dog handlers, they're in position, they're absolutely 100% justified to send the dog at the bad guy, and they just don't do it, or they command the dog in such a way the dog doesn't understand. I've seen it twice happened.
That means it's probably been there hundreds of times other places.
Yeah.
If you've
Yeah.
seen it
Well, I didn't see it personally. I've seen on video.
the
closed circuit.
Closed circuit, yeah.
Professional dog handlers, security companies,
Yep.
and police. One was a police officer actually, and he just couldn't. He just wouldn't command the dog correctly, and he did twice, as a matter of fact. And I'm telling him, did you command the dog? And he couldn't command the dog. He just didn't.
Kind of froze up.
And I thought he's an idiot. And he thought, he felt bad about himself. So he blamed the dog. Right. And I start running into these dynamics which are really caused by us not being able to hurt other human being.
Yeah.
Even so you have a dog which can do it.
Yeah.
And
not hurt, when Hans says not hurt other being, not vicious, not out, it's more in the
no, as a
context
necessity,
of-
as a
context of,
necessity,
yeah,
as a
yeah,
necessity.
yeah.
It's your job.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to
Yeah.
do that, or to protect your family or yourself.
Yeah.
If somebody's coming at you or hurt you, and you need to use your dog,
Yeah.
well, you better be mentally ready, prepared to do it. Just like Abraham Lincoln said, at first make sure you are right, and then proceed with all force. But that part of proceeding with all force is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
I read in that book over there, which you mentioned, on killing, he's talking about...
That's the title of the book, by the way.
Yeah, that's the title of the book, yeah. He's talking about how soldiers, they would, the French, I think it was, military did test, and they would put a target which would be 6 feet high and, I don't know, let's say 100 yards long, kind of a strip. And they would put soldiers, which would demonstrate the opposing military advancing at them, that target would. And they would put 200 to 1,000 soldiers in front of it about, I think he says 60 yards, right? And they would fire and they would hit it from that distance with those black powder muzzle loaders.
Yeah.
They would hit it 60 to 75% of the time if it was target. But in battle, in the same scenario, 1,000 soldiers, when they fired, they would hit 1 or 2 opposing soldiers per volley.
That means the percentage is like,
And most of the bullets were aimed over the heads on purpose
yeah.
of the enemy. Right? And that's because they were not ready to kill their people, the other people.
Yeah.
And only very few people could do that. And in that book, he's giving example after example of this happening. And that's when you train dogs, and almost nobody does that. You need to, if you do it for fun, hey, good, whatever rocks your boat, right, or floats your boat.
Yeah.
But but if you really want to use that dog eventually for protection, you need to, after you make the decision, you also gotta be able to proceed with it. I talked to this guy, a friend of mine, who was in Vietnam, and he said a lot of people, when they shoot, they jerk the gun to the side or over the head, right at the time they're pulling trigger, so they don't hit actually the person. Even so, the person is shooting at them. They just don't want to kill, right? It's a very big problem, and so what I'm saying is, if you want to play doggies, that's fine, but don't forget to train yourself too. And one of the good ways to train yourself, I think, is to visualize the potential scenarios. Because visualizing what you would do in this situation or that situation is almost as good as actually doing it. Not quite, but almost as good, right? And I remember there was a airplane crash in Slovakia, in Bratislava, and Bratislava airport was right by Danube River. And the runway, kind of like in New York, right?
Yeah,
right
right
by
there
the
in the
water,
water,
right?
yeah.
And this was in late 50s, early 60s. This happened, and the airplane, had some kind of a problem, so they abandoned the takeoff. But they ran out of runway and they skid and fell in the Danube River. The airplane did, and the tail was bobbing above, but the rest of the plane was under the water, and the door to get out of the plane was in front of the wings. So there was not another one in the tail, right? And so all the people drowned except 90-year-old guy who swam to the door and got out. He was the only one who survived. And when they asked him on TV, on radio or TV or whatever, I don't remember now where, but they asked him, why, how come he could swim down there and get out, and all the rest of the people drowned? And he says, I think because I visualized what would I do if this would happen, because it's kind of, we are by the runway by the river, so what would I do if and I looked where the door is. Back then there was no like briefing like they're giving now, right?
Yeah.
He just did it himself. And he thought about it, and we visualized it, and then when it actually happened, his brain was ready for it, because it already went through his head once before, But we can talk about these things later, sometimes else. But so he visualized it and he swam down and got out, because he thought of it. What would he do? Without any briefing or so. So be territorially aware, visualize scenarios. What would you do? Think about it, think about it. Don't waste your time, when you're driving, just, I used to drive to Parker a lot, and it was highways this way, highways that were a lot of head-on accidents.
Yeah.
And I was always thinking, what am I gonna do if somebody is gonna swerve at me? That guy's coming. He may stay on his side, but what am I gonna do? Am I gonna go for ditch? What am I gonna do? Right? And so I visualize so that when it happens, you don't have to make the decision. You already made it, right? And also the visualization, like they did some tests I've heard with basketball team, different basketball teams. They measure how many penalty shots they can do, and they had 3 basketball teams, and one was doing nothing, sitting on the bench. The other one was throwing penalty shots, and the third one was just sitting on the bench visualizing they're shooting penalty shots. And they did it for several weeks. And the one who were just sitting and doing nothing, they didn't get better. The best one was, of course, the one who practiced, but the one which visualized were about 80 or 90%, almost as good as the one which actually practiced.
Interesting. Okay.
All right. Anyway, so visualize things, just think about, what am I going to do? When this guy is coming at me, want to hurt me, and I need the dog to protect me, visualize those scenarios. Just like that 90-year-old guy who swam through the airplane. All right, that's it.